2, 1.
Republicans barely hold on to a deep red district in Ohio. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has herself a rough day, and fallout continues from the Alex Jones ban. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Wow, lots of things happening last night. Was a big election in Ohio. There was also an election in Washington that turned out to be too close for Republicans. None of this is great news for Republicans. I want to talk about what exactly is going on in those elections. But first, let me remind you that our national debt is $21 trillion and counting. That is money we owe other countries, or at least owe back to funds that we have withdrawn money from. It is greater than the entire economic output of the United States. If your entire life savings is tied to the U.S. dollar, you should be asking yourself, what's your plan for inflation? If the stilts fall out from under the economy, higher wages can increase minimum wage across the country. Import prices are going to skyrocket with trade wars. Raw materials prices are increasing with tariffs, rising housing prices. That's certainly happening here in California. And the government solution to a lot of this stuff very often is printing more money, which means demeaning your assets, degrading your assets. Well, the best way to protect your hard-earned investments sometimes is to hedge against inflation and uncertainty with at least some diversification into precious metals. Gold is a safe haven against such uncertainty. My savings plan is diversified, and yours should be as well. The company I trust with precious metals purchases is Birch Gold Group. And right now, thanks to a little-known IRS tax law, you can even move your IRA or eligible 401k into an IRA backed by physical gold and silver. It is perfect for people who want to protect hard-earned retirement savings from any future geopolitical uncertainty. Birch Gold Group has thousands of satisfied customers, countless five-star reviews, an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Right now, contact Birch Gold to request a free information kit on physical precious metals. It's a comprehensive 16-page kit showing how gold and silver can protect your savings, how you can legally move your IRA 401k out of risky stocks and bonds or into a precious metals IRA. To get that no-cost, no-obligation kit, go to www.birchgold.com/Ben. That is birchgold.com/Ben. They're the people I trust for diversification into precious metals. Okay, so last night, the left was prepared for their big moment in the sun. Last night was going to be the moment when they finally won a deep red district. Now, the last time they won an actual red seat was when they won the Alabama Senate seat because Roy Moore had been the Republican nominee, and it turns out that he liked frequenting the food court back in the 1970s to look for 14-year-old girls, allegedly. Well, he lost that election to a Democrat, but that was seen as largely an outlier. This Ohio election was seen as more of an indicator as to how the elections of 2018 are going to go. This district is heavily, heavily, heavily Republican. This is a very heavy Republican district. When I say it's a heavy Republican district, I mean that this district went for President Trump by something like 11 points. It means that if you look at the counties that are surveyed in the Ohio 12th district, the vast majority of them are R+15. Overall, if you look at how this district has voted, it voted Republican in the last several election cycles. There was a Republican congressperson who decided to resign, and that's why you had this special election happening in Ohio's 12th district. And the Democrat in the county was the Franklin County Recorder named Danny O'Connor, and the Republicans chose a 50-something veteran of state politics, a guy named Troy Balderson. He barely pulled out the election. This thing was narrow as all get out. It should have been a Republican district plus 14. It is 14 percentage points more Republican-leaning than the nation as a whole. There's something like 114 Republican seats that are less Republican than this particular district is. None of this looks good for Republicans, even though Troy Balderson picks up the seat and wins the seat. They're going to have to do this again in like 3 months because the special election is only to fill out the term that's currently happening. The political geography in this district is really interesting because there's a lot of suburban districts, and those suburban districts, Balderson dramatically underperformed. He overperformed, actually, in districts. Let me reverse that. He overperformed in some of the suburban districts, specifically because John Kasich came out and endorsed him. John Kasich is the governor of Ohio. I am not a John Kasich fan, as most people are aware, but he did not win the seat, Troy Balderson, because President Trump endorsed him. He won this seat because John Kasich endorsed him in the last days of the seat. The statistics are pretty clear about this. Nonetheless, President Trump tweeted out, "As long as I campaign and or support Senate and House candidates within reason, they will win. I love the people, and they certainly seem to like the job I'm doing. If I find the time in between China, Iran, the economy, and much more, which I must, we will have a giant red wave." Okay, the possibility of a giant red wave, extraordinarily slight. It is very, very unlikely that there's going to be a red wave come November. It could happen, theoretically. But there were a lot of indicators that were not particularly good for Republicans across the country last night. In the 3rd District of Washington, which is a likely Republican district, Democrat vote totals is in a primary, outpaced Republicans by 50.3% to 49.7%. That is a contest that is going to feature the GOP representative Jamie Herrera Beutler and Democrat Carolyn Long in November. In the 5th district, which is run between Representative Kathy McMorris Rodgers, who's the 4th-ranking Republican woman in the House of Representatives, and a Democrat named Lisa Brown, the vote totals showed that Republicans only led by 50.5% to 47.1%. That is not a good vote total for Republicans in that particular district. And again, in Ohio, that's not a result that should be, I think, encouraging to a lot of Republicans. People are saying, well, yeah, the Republicans retained the seat. This is a R plus 10 seat. They retained it by basically 2,000 votes, less than 2,000 votes. Balderson won 50.2% of the vote to Danny O'Connor's 49.6% of the vote, and the Green Party picked up 1,100 votes. So this is not, it's not encouraging for Republicans. It is not. And anybody who's telling you differently is whistling past the graveyard and trying to suggest to you something that is simply not true. You have to look reality in the face. You have to look the statistics in the face. It is also worth noting that the polls in this district were quite good. There's a lot of talk about the failures of state polling in 2016. There were failures of state polling in 2016, particularly in a lot of states where there had only been one poll every couple of months. But the polling in this district was spot on. It basically showed a dead heat. The race was indeed a dead heat, so the polls were correct. CNN's John King, he says that this was a big deal last night, that this was too close to call. He's correct about this. Republicans are taking solace in the fact that this district ended up going for the Republican, but it is true that this district never really should have been on the table in the first place.
During the Trump presidency, the close-in suburbs in here have turned against this president. That's why Alabama has a Democratic senator. That's why Democrats did so well in Virginia. I could go on and on and on, including Pennsylvania 18 and Connor Lamb. So this district is ruby red Republican. The fact that it is so close is a big deal.
And that is 100% true. Okay, what John King is saying there is right, and it's why Republicans ought to be careful with what they do in the upcoming months. There's this sense on the Republican side that President Trump is untouchable, that the Republicans are untouchable. The data just do not bear this out. Listen, I know I'm not telling a lot of folks what they want to hear, but the reality is that this is a district that went for Donald Trump by nearly 10 points, right? It went 51.8% to Donald Trump, I believe, this district. Actually, the state of Ohio total went 51.6% to Donald Trump. The Ohio 12th district went to Trump in a landslide in the last presidential cycle, and yet it did not go in a landslide for President Trump last night. Democrats have been routinely outperforming in these special elections by dramatic measures. Okay, this is not a seat that should have been competitive. And there's a lot of money that was poured into this district in support of Balderson. The Republicans did outspend the Democrats, and then they barely won the seat. Again, if you look at these district numbers, they don't look good. If even half of the 68 Republicans who represent a district less friendly than Ohio's 12th lose this November, Democrats retake the House with 11 seats to spare. If only 1 in 3 lose, Democrats stand at a net gain of 22 seats. Okay, so none of this is particularly encouraging for Republicans. So when President Trump says that this is just evidence that Republicans are on the upswing and everything is hunky-dory, that the evidence is just not there for that. Meanwhile, the Democrats continue, the radical wing of the Democratic Party continues to gain in its ascendancy. And this is part of the problem with the Democrats, and this is why they could actually blow this. So the Democrats have what you might term reverse Tea Party problems. There was a lot of talk in 2008, 2010, 2012 about Republicans nominating unpalatable candidates because they were the most anti-establishment candidates. The latest example of that was Roy Moore in Alabama. But you remember we nominated Christine O'Donnell in Delaware instead of Mike Castle, and she ended up losing that Senate seat. And there were Republicans in Nevada. They ran a candidate in 2010, I believe, who was unpalatable, and she ended up losing the seat. This is the sort of thing that can happen when the base of the party starts thinking less pragmatically and more passionately. You're seeing the Democrats sort of do the same thing. The reality is that in this Ohio 12th district, the Democratic candidate was a longtime Democratic politician with establishment ties, and they did better in that district. The same thing is true in Pennsylvania, but the Democratic base is embracing radicalism full scale, indicated by the amount of conspiratorial nonsense pressed by some of their more radical members. Alyssa Milano, right, the actress, she tweeted this out last night. She tweeted out, "You know what sucks? Because of our unwillingness to pass policy that protects our election integrity, I immediately think the Green Party votes tonight are Russian meddling. Why else would anyone cast a protest vote in Ohio when there's so much at stake?" If you actually think that the Democrat in Ohio 12 lost because of the Russians, let me suggest that you have now been completely taken over by Trump derangement syndrome. So the Democrats are having to fight an internal battle between electing candidates who can actually win general election seats and electing candidates who are most likely to vent their spleen and their ire at the world. And I'm not sure that's going to end well for them in 2020, because in primaries, in presidential primaries, What 2016 shows is that passion actually matters. What 2016 demonstrated is that when you've got an angry base, when you've got an enraged base, that base can make serious trouble for you. You saw with Bernie Sanders in the Democratic Party and Donald Trump in the Republican Party. It seems likely to me that the Democrats in 2020 do not elect somebody to run on their ballot who is going to be a moderate voice of reason. It seems more likely to me that they elect somebody along the lines of a Bernie Sanders or an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which is why most of the major 2020 candidates showed up at Netroots, this radical convention for the Democrats, over the last week and a half. All the names that have been mentioned are wildly out of the mainstream. Elizabeth Warren is out of the mainstream. Cory Booker is out of the mainstream. Kamala Harris is out of the mainstream. Certainly, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders are out of the mainstream, but those are the people that the Democrats seem like they want to push. So if they are practical, then they will go and they will find moderates to run in a lot of these districts and in the presidential seat in 2020. But if not, then they are going to end up, I think, undercutting their own momentum here, which is what Republicans are counting on. Basically, Republicans are counting on President Trump to troll Democrats into insanity and force them to run candidates who are wildly radical and the American people cannot stand. That is the best hope that the Republicans have here, because the Republicans are doing a piss poor job of actually representing their victories in these particular election cycles. It is not good stuff. And in just a second, I want to talk about the future of the Democratic Party and this turn toward radicalism. But first, let's talk a little bit about what you're wearing. Right now, if you're at the office and you're wearing a suit, you probably got it off the rack and it's probably ugly. The reason that you need to get a better suit is because custom tailored suits make you look like $1 million, but you don't have to spend $1 million. Instead, you should head over to Indochino. It's the world's largest made-to-measure menswear company. They've been featured in major publications, including GQ, Forbes, and Fast Company. They make suits and shirts made to your exact measurements for a terrific fit. Guys love the wide selection of high-quality fabrics, the option to personalize all the details, including your lapel, lining, and monogram. Here's how it works. You visit a showroom or you shop online at Indochino.com. You pick your fabric, you choose your customizations, you submit your measurements, and then you wait for that custom suit to arrive in just a few weeks. I've been to their showroom here in Beverly Hills, and it is just a lot of fun. It's really a blast. You go in there and you feel like James Bond. You're selecting your material and your lapels, and you can get things monogrammed. It's really awesome. This week, my listeners can get any premium Indochino suit for just $379 at Indochino.com when you enter Shapiro at checkout. That's 50% off the regular price for a made-to-measure premium suit. Again, shipping is free. Indochino.com, promo code Shapiro for any premium suit for just $379 plus free shipping. It's a great deal. Go check it out right now, Indochino.com, and use promo code Shapiro at checkout. Okay, so the best hope for the Republicans, considering this wave of Democratic turnout, which really is pushed by the president's unpopularity. I understand among Republicans, President Trump is very popular. President Trump also has a bad habit of pissing off the left to the point that they actually want to go to the polls. And when you're the president, your job is to enervate the other side. Your job is to take the wind out of their sails. President Trump is constantly blowing wind into the sails of the left by making statements on a routine basis that just get them jazzed up to throw fellow Republicans out of office. As I say, I'm not sure that has a major impact on Trump's reelection prospects, but I do think it has a serious impact on these congressional races. The corollary of that is the Democrats, because they are so jazzed up, could move radically to the left, and that means that their future is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, yesterday I said that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not the brightest bulb in the basket, and I stand by that statement because she is not, in fact, the brightest bulb in the basket. She was on Pod Save America yesterday, and she made a series of ridiculous, silly statements. She, again, is considered the future of the Democratic Party because she's an intersectional candidate. She's a person of great intersectional capacity. She's a woman, and she's Latina, and that means that she has valuable things to say, even if she is just saying random stuff all the time that doesn't make any sense. Well, yesterday on Pod Save America, she was asked a series of kiss-ass questions, and she proceeded to immediately blow them sky high because she can't even answer those questions properly. By the way, I've received a lot of emails. Would I debate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? I would pay money to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's campaign to debate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I would pay her money to come on the Sunday special. I would give money to her campaign if it meant that she would actually come on the Sunday special and answer some serious questions from somebody on the other side of the aisle. But there's a reason that she's only existing in the safe space of Pod Save America, where they're just going to ask her questions like, Alexandria, where do you get that lipstick? Alexandria, how do you do your hair in the mornings? Alexandria, can you talk to us about how Republicans are mean and cruel? Yeah, it's really funny. This morning, she tweeted out, because there's a lot of blowback after her various interviews, she tweeted out a bunch of things about how the reason people are coming after her is because they're trying to distract from this burgeoning Republican scandal. There's a Republican representative who's now been arrested for some sort of bank fraud. He's a big early backer of President Trump's. And she says the reason people are coming after me is specifically because they're trying to distract. She says, whenever the right is being particularly feisty towards me, the first thing I do is check to see which bad news of theirs they're trying to distract from. Lo and behold, and then she says Representative Chris Collins of New York, Trump's earliest congressional backer, was arrested by the FBI on securities fraud related charges. Well, no, the reason that we focus on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is because the media have fallen in love with the lady who won 17,000 votes in a Democratic primary in New York, and we're all supposed to believe that she's the wave of the future. That's why we're paying attention. Also, because it's a lot of fun to pay attention to the dumb stuff she says, because if this is the future of the Democratic Party, the future is stupid. The future is just dumb. So we're going to go through her comments in just one second. Then we'll get to all of the controversy surrounding this Republican candidate, this Republican office holder, Chris Collins. So here's what she had to say to Pod Save America. She began by talking about what America is not anymore. Now, the Democratic Party, in order to win in 2020 and overall, is going to have to appeal to audiences they may not like. The Democratic Party has made the argument that America is moving in a different demographic direction. It's moving away from white families. It is moving away from families altogether. If you have to pick the person who you are appealing to, right, if you have one person who sort of sums up the base of your party, the Democrats would say that person is probably a minority woman who's either a single mom or who doesn't have kids and has a career. Right? That is the person the Democratic Party is looking to appeal to. Right? Whenever you make a TV show in Hollywood, you have to think who is the member of the audience who is most indicative of the base for this particular show. I think that politicians do the same thing. For President Trump, it was clearly blue-collar white males. That may not work out the way that he wants in 2020. For Democrats, however, it seems to be that it is minority females who, this is Hillary Clinton's entire base, right? Minority females who either are single moms or who don't have kids and have a career. Those are the people she is most attempting to appeal to. And then you sort of backtrack to the more mainstream audiences, but those are the people you're trying to get out in massive numbers. Now, the people that both sides seem to be ignoring are white women in the suburbs who vote an extraordinarily high rate, who are in fact mothers, who do care about safety and economic prosperity. George W. Bush in 2004 won because that was his target audience. His target audience was not white blue-collar males in 2004. His target audience were the so-called security moms. Right? Those were the people that Bush went after in 2004. Both parties seem to have neglected that. Obama didn't neglect it in 2008. He did neglect it in 2012. In 2016, both parties neglected that. I'm really bewildered as to why both parties are neglecting mothers, mothers who are married, who actually take care of their kids and or have a job. Why is that a group of people who you're trying to ignore? That group of people, mothers who stay home, has actually increased in the American demographic dramatically over the past 10 years. In the last census, that number, stay-at-home moms, rose by 13%. 13%. More women are opting to stay out of the workforce and take care of their kids at home. And that is still a huge burgeoning percentage of the population. I don't understand why both parties are ignoring it, but particularly the Democrats. You would think that would be the place they'd go, right? Donald Trump is very off-putting to college-educated women. He's very off-putting to suburban moms. Why would they not be targeting those folks? But they send out people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a 29-year-old former bartender who is single, has no kids, and talks in disparaging terms about soccer moms. She sounds a lot like Hillary Clinton back in 1992, talking about how she's not a Tammy Wynette woman. She could have stayed home and baked cookies and had tea parties, but she decided to pursue her career. That's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez sounds like right here when she is talking about the supposed lack in the middle class. Here's what she had to say.
You know, their heyday was in the 90s when, like, you know, kids had like Furbies and like parents, you had like soccer moms with like 2 vans and stuff, like
Furbies and 2 vans.
Yeah.
That's a dream.
That's not America anymore.
That's not America anymore. First of all, like, I don't know, like, soccer moms with like 2 vans and a Furby, and like, this woman is clearly, she is clearly the greatest intellect the Democratic Party has seen since probably Ted Sorensen, maybe since JFK. I mean, clearly this is a person of great intellectual firepower. Now the reality is, again, that according to the census, 10.6 million children under 15 in 2-parent homes were being raised by stay-at-home moms. And it's not that these moms don't exist anymore, it's that they're driving SUVs rather than minivans, which brings us to the second stupid point Ocasio-Cortez made. She was asked specifically about the breakdown in economics in the United States, what Democrats are missing, and she talked about the upper middle class. This is clip 11. She talked about the upper middle class, which she says does not exist anymore.
They were really kind of connected most to an electorate when they were fighting for these seats, when they got these seats, when they were campaigning most, when we had more of an American middle class. And so I think that politically, this like upper middle class is probably more moderate. But that upper middle class doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, she doesn't even know what the hell she is talking about. Not only does the upper middle class exist, it is the fastest growing segment of the American population and has been for 30 years. So she's just making things up right now. Okay, between 1979 and 2014, the upper middle class in the United States increased by 16.4%, as opposed to the poor in the United States. That number actually decreased by 5%. The upper middle class constituted about 12% of the population in 1979. It was close to 30% as of 2014. So that's a massive, massive increase in the upper middle class. Stephen Rose of the Nonpartisan Urban Institute says, quote, any discussion of inequality that is limited to the 1% misses a lot of the picture because it ignores the large inequality between the growing upper middle class and the middle and lower classes. In 1980, 7% of Americans lived in affluent neighborhoods. By 2012, that number was 16%. The Pew Research Center found that 203 metropolitan areas have seen their middle class shrink, but in 172 of those cities, the shrinkage was in part due to the growth in wealthier families. So as usual, she is wrong. Shock of shocks. It turns out the Democratic Socialist doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. But this is the face of the Democratic Party. And the hurt didn't stop there. The failures didn't stop there. I'm going to have to show you this clip, or play for you this clip, in which she explains how she's going to pay for things, because it really is astonishing. But first, let's talk about your business. You're not a Democratic Socialist. You have a business to run. And that means that you're constantly looking to make your business better. And because you are looking to make your business better, you need to talk to the folks over at LegalZoom. Okay, the folks over at LegalZoom can provide you all the legal services you need for your startup, your growing business, and they can also help you with a lot of your personal legal work as well. Most Americans don't have a will. 20 years ago, that wasn't a shocking statement because you needed a trustworthy attorney, but now LegalZoom has made it easy to create your own, which is why more than 1 million people have used LegalZoom for their estate planning needs. It's National Make a Will Month at LegalZoom.com. It is now your turn to take control of your family and assets with an estate plan. It starts with a will or a living trust. If you don't know which one is right for you, no problem. LegalZoom has a network of independent attorneys who advise you on what's best for you and your family, and LegalZoom isn't a law firm, so you're not paying law firm rates. Make things a lot easier on your family when you're gone. Check out that LegalZoom Last Will and Living Trust estate plan right now during National Make a Will Month at LegalZoom.com. Plus, they have all sorts of other legal services for your business. Go check them out right now. For special savings, be sure to enter code BEN in the referral box at checkout. That is promo code BEN for special savings only at LegalZoom.com, where life meets legal. Again, promo code BEN for special savings at LegalZoom.com. They really are fantastic. I've been using LegalZoom for years, long before they were an advertiser on the program. So go check them out. Okay, so Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the reason Republicans are talking about her is because the Democrats have propped her up as the supposed next wave of brainiacs inside the Democratic Party. And not only that, because it is good for us to talk about her, because I hope that she's the face of the Democratic Party. I hope that their new face is the Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wing. The worst thing that could happen for Republicans is for them to run a candidate like Joe Biden. The worst thing that could happen for Republicans is for them to run somebody who can purport to be moderate just long enough to become president of the United States or become senator or congressperson. I'm hoping the Democrats make a big boo-boo here, and they are so blasted out of their mind by Trump's presidency that they move to make Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez their darling. Okay, so she was asked yesterday again on Pod Save America, a podcast run by the Obama bros, right? I mean, it's a bunch of Obama people who are running that podcast, and they love her because secretly she represents their id. And she says all the dumb things they wish they could say, but then their super ego kicks in and they say, perhaps I should not say this out loud because it's a stupid thing. She doesn't have any brain-to-mouth filter when it comes to this stuff. So she was asked specifically about how she was going to pay for all of her plans. It did not go well.
You know, they say, how are you going to pay for it? As though they haven't used these same ways to pay for unlimited wars, to pay for trillion-dollar tax cuts and tax cut extensions. They use these mechanisms to pay for these things all the time. They only want to know, it just seems like their pockets are only empty when we're talking about education and investing in human capital in the United States, education, healthcare, housing, and investing in the middle class. All of a sudden, you know, there's nothing left. All of a sudden, the wealthiest nation in the world we're just totally scarce. And we have complete scarcity when it comes to the things that are most important.
Okay, so I do love the fact, and the original question here was, how do you pay for things? And her answer is, nobody pays for things. Thank you, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for that brilliant exposition on the debt and deficit in the United States. By the way, when she says things like, the only thing we invest in is tax cuts and wars, that's all we invest in. This year, we will spend $4.3 trillion. The federal government will spend $4.3 trillion this year. What percentage of that goes to the military? Any guesses? Any guesses in the room? Any guesses? What percentage of that $4.3 trillion goes to the American military establishment, including the vets? How much of that? Senya, you got a guess? What percent? Okay, Senya says 60 goes to the military. Jess, any guesses on what percentage of the American federal budget goes to the military? Jess? 30. Okay. The answer is 16% of the federal budget goes to the American military. The remainder goes to all of the supposed priorities that we are supposedly ignoring, according to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. 62% of the entire federal budget goes to mandatory spending under Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. The vast majority goes to social welfare programs that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says we are spending too little money on. The fact is, the amount of money that we spend per capita in the United States on social welfare programs is actually almost on par with that of the European countries and actually surpasses some of the European countries. And we are spending a buttload of money on all of these priorities that she says we are not spending money on. It's just a lie that we're spending it all on quote-unquote tax cuts. First of all, that's not an expenditure. That's me keeping my own money. And then when she says we're not investing in the middle class, understand that when she says that we're supposed to invest in the middle class, what she means is we're supposed to tax the living hell out of everyone who makes more than 30 grand in the United States, and then we'll pass it back to the people at the lower end of the income spectrum for investment in garbage government programs that do not result in higher productivity, higher wages, or higher employment. That is her actual plan. I would love, when people say, would you debate her? I would love to debate her because I have one question for her. Name an industry you would not nationalize. Which ones should the government not run and why? Right, can she name any of them? I have serious doubts. She says she wants to abolish the profit motive. Okay, well then she's going to have to explain how she abolishes the profit motive without abolishing private industry. Or would she just abolish it? Or why does the Democratic Party think this is a good idea? By the way, when she says that we are, we haven't worried about spending in the past, yes, that's a problem. I'm old enough to remember when Republicans thought it was a problem. I guess now we don't worry about that so much because President Trump's president, so we're supposed to ignore the fact there's a $21 trillion national debt. But that sucker is going to come due. Social Security will be bankrupt in the next decade. Medicare will be bankrupt a decade after that. Okay, these programs are not going to be around. Or if they are around, they're going to require massive cuts or massive taxes. And even so, what I love most is that she says that, we've never had to worry about spending this sort of money before. The kind of money that she's proposing spending is so insane that it makes what we have spent before absolutely obsolete. And according to the Mercatus Center, a libertarian-leaning center at George Mason University, they estimated that Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan, we talked about this last week, would cost the government $32 trillion over the next decade. But we can actually do a budget exercise using nonpartisan and even left-leaning groups. Vox.com, a left-wing source, they talk about what exactly we would have to pay for single-payer health care, a jobs guarantee, and free college. What exactly would it cost? Well, it turns out that it would cost, according to the Tax Policy Center, it would cost legitimately trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. $42.5 trillion in new proposals over the next decade, on top of the $12.4 trillion baseline deficit. To put this in perspective, according to Vox.com, Washington is currently projected to collect $44 trillion in taxes, in revenues, that's what they call it, over the next decade. Okay, the Republican tax cut, the fiscal Armageddon, will cost less than $2 trillion over the next decade. So we're going to spend $44 trillion, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says the real problem is those tax cuts that quote-unquote cost $2 trillion. What is the 30-year projected tab for these programs that they're talking about? The 30-year projected tab is, I kid you not, $218 trillion on top of an $84 trillion baseline deficit driven by Social Security, Medicare, and the resulting internet costs. Federal spending, which is typically between 18 and 22% of GDP in the United States, would soar past 40% of GDP on its way to 50% of GDP within 3 decades. And she says, oh, well, we've never had to worry about spending before. Well, it turns out if you quadruple the spending, you might have to worry about it a little bit more. If you got a $10,000 credit card debt, and then you decide to rack up another $40,000 of credit card debt, maybe you ought to think about whether the original debt was a good idea, but quadrupling it is an even better idea. Okay, we'd be at 60% of GDP by that point. Okay, within 3 decades. State and local government spending would push the total cost of government, according to Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez, all the way to 60% of GDP. 60% of every buck made in the United States would be spent by the federal government, exceeding the current spending level of every single European country. and this is their big idea, this is what they think is going to win them elections, good luck. Good luck. And again, this is Vox.com. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the radicalism of the Democrats, which is being obscured by the fact that we have to talk about the constant stream of scandals and stupid inside the Republican Party. If we talked about this every day, it would be very difficult for Democrats to win. We don't talk about it any day except on this show because we're too distracted with all the rest of the nonsense. First, I want to talk about your sleep quality. So, I am not famous for being good at sleep, but one of the things that makes me better at sleep is my Helix Sleep mattress. Working with the world's leading sleep experts, Helix Sleep developed a mattress that is customized to your specific height, weight, and sleep preferences so you can have the best sleep of your life at an unbeatable price. Here's how it works. You go to helixsleep.com, you fill out their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they will design your custom mattress. They can even customize each side for you and a partner. In 2018, Helix Sleep has taken customized sleep to the next level with the Helix Pillow. These are all new pillows. They're fully adjustable. You can achieve perfect comfort regardless of sleep position or body type. Helix Sleep has thousands of 5-star reviews, plus you get 100 nights to try them out. I was so impressed by Helix Sleep that I told my sister about it when she got married. She asked for that as her wedding gift. We got her a Helix Sleep mattress, and it is just awesome. She loves it. We love our own Helix Sleep mattress. It comes in the mail. You unwrap it and flakes right in front of you. You pop it on the bed frame. You're good to go. It's really convenient. It's really easy, and it's personalized to you. HelixSleep.com/Ben. Go there right now. You'll get up to $125 toward your mattress order. Again, that's HelixSleep.com/Ben for up to $125 off your mattress order. Go check it out right now. HelixSleep.com/Ben. This is a luxury mattress at a non-luxury price. HelixSleep.com/Ben. Go check it out. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about the cost of the radicalism of the Democrats and yet why Republicans can't take advantage of that. But first, you're going to have to go over to dailywire.com. $9.99 a month gets you the subscription. It helps us here. It really does. People say, how can we support the show? How can we support the site? Go subscribe. That's how you can help support us. Seriously. It makes sure that we are able to employ the dozens of people who we have who work on the show every single day, to whom I'm deeply grateful despite my catty remarks about them on a constant basis. So you can go check that out for $9.99 a month. Also, for $99 a year, you get this. The Leftist Tears Hot or Cold tumbler is cheaper than monthly subscription. Also, you get an awesome giveaway gift, the Leftist Tears Hot or Cold tumbler, so go check that out as well. Also, please subscribe YouTube, iTunes. We have a brand new Sunday special you can only get if you subscribe over at iTunes or YouTube. Our Sunday special this week features the entrepreneurial guru, Tai Lopez. It was a lot of fun. Hey, here's a little bit of a preview.
All right, it's Tai Lopez here. I'm going to be on the Ben Shapiro show this Sunday. He got me to talk about stuff that nobody's been able to get me to talk about, a little bit of religion, a little bit of politics. But we're going to talk about entrepreneurialism, mentors, and what I learned from my 100-year-old grandma.
Okay, so it's pretty great. So go check that out this Sunday. And make sure you subscribe again at YouTube and iTunes. We are the largest, fastest growing conservative podcast in the nation.